financial problems, elder law, criminal law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by Thav Gross. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Today's topic is solving the tax problem. Not the tax problem, solving it. Brian Small, good morning.
Good morning, Ken. A pleasure to be here this morning.
Jeffrey Kirshner. Hi, Ken. Surprised you guys. Jeffrey Linden.
Shocked me.
Good morning, Ken.
Jeff's our tax expert. Brian's our bankruptcy expert. Jeffrey Kirshner's our disability expert, which if you've got a bad, serious tax problem, it disables you.
Absolutely.
How does it do that? You don't sleep at night.
Paralyzed with fear and anxiety.
How many of you, when you sleep, does your mind race?
Yeah, but not while I sleep. Otherwise, I would be sleeping.
I believe my mind races
which
while I'm sleeping.
My mind races to keep me from
I'm
sleeping.
thinking about dreaming, sleeping, half sleeping about my current files, my current cases, whatever I've got going on. Fast, and it's going fast. And if I wake up, check at the clock, and I turn back to the pillow and close my eyes, it just continues.
Meditation and melatonin.
And if I had a tax problem, it would be like it would be like in an accelerator going crazy.
I just have a question. You actually sleep? Because lately, as I've gotten older, I sleep less and less. It is...
Oh, no, I sleep more. I go to bed 10 to 11 now, 10 to 11:30, where I used to go to bed probably 11:30 to 1, and I used to get up at 6:30, and now I kind of drag myself out of bed at about 7:30 to 8.
So you're out the whole time? You're sleeping that whole time?
Well, when I go upstairs to hit the pillow, I'm typically out within 3 minutes.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
If I'm not out
I'm
within,
that
if I'm not
melatonin
out
guy.
within
I mean,
3 minutes, I'm not, then I can't sleep.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right, so let's take some specific problems and solve them. That's how I want to play this. You ready?
Yep.
Problem number 1, unfiled tax returns.
Got it.
I got a solution. File them.
That's like the worst problem.
Is that the worst problem?
Yes.
It's the worst problem for, I think, losing sleep
the worst problem for losing sleep.
because you don't know where you're going.
It's a costly problem because there's higher penalties for not filing. It's also technically a federal crime if you are supposed to file.
I think not technically. Isn't it a crime?
In the context of
It is.
in the context of solving the problem, how would you rate it as difficult versus easy?
Easy. That's the easiest problem to solve.
But it's actually difficult also. Because if you have unfiled taxes and you've done it for long enough, the Internal Revenue Service will file what's called a substitute for return for you, which is a return, and in the regular world you'll have a large liability, or you will have a substantially reduced refund because they only give you one deduction. But in the world of bankruptcy, the minute that substitute for return gets filed, you are no longer eligible to discharge that income tax obligation in a bankruptcy.
I was wondering what world he lived in that wasn't regular. But that
wait,
may be true.
Do you have? Is this the outline
No.
in front of you? What is the topic? Solving the tax problem with
Outline.
concerns about bankruptcy, so that the bankruptcy expert can jump and grab the show.
Yes.
Is that the topic?
Yes, because I just tore up my outline.
No.
Okay.
But while that is true,
Point taken.
while that
So
is true,
substitute for return complicates bankruptcy.
it complicates bankruptcy, but there also results usually in an overstated tax liability. So you still want to file your own return because
Right.
you're going to lower your
Yeah,
underlying debt.
and they don't always file the substitute for return. The
Right.
reason. So let's focus on the easy side for a second, just so the audience gets that out of it. You get off of the transcripts all their W-2s, their 1099s, and so forth, in case they don't have. A lot of times, someone goes 6 years without filing their tax returns.
Yeah.
Records are a problem going back 6 years ago.
I can get 10 years worth of W-2s, 1099s, and the income-related information that gets reported
and the
to
rest of
IRS.
it you can estimate.
Right.
This is what people don't understand. Take your example. Here's my favorite example. The trucker. He owns his own trucking rig. He's not filing it. He's not getting a W-2. He's got 1099s from his the companies that he's doing the work
He's an
for.
independent contractor.
And he doesn't have all of his records. Does he then, if he was on an audit, what an auditor would do is, you don't have any records, 0 for gas. You don't have any records, 0 for depreciation on your truck, 0 for tires. It doesn't, that's because the guy's an auditor, or she's an auditor. They're mean. They're ornery.
Right.
That doesn't mean that that's the end result.
You're getting audited soon.
If you know how many miles you drove,
Called her mean.
if you know how many miles you, go ahead. I have a simple return nowadays. 20 years ago, it might have been a little bit different. You don't have, you can estimate. You know you drove the truck. If you drove the truck, you had to have gas. You had to have depreciation. You had to have tires. You have those expenses. We estimate them. We don't spend the rest of our lives trying to figure out the estimation. We get you together with an accountant and you file the returns. Boom. You can get it done in a week. You can get it done in 2 weeks. Maybe it takes 3.
Right.
It's not going to take a year to file the returns. You file them. Now what happens?
Well, there's also a backside benefit to filing, because there's a 10-year limit on how long the IRS has to collect taxes from you. It's statute of limitations.
From when you file.
That's the point. From when you're assessed. If you don't file,
You're never assessed.
that clock doesn't start.
If they do a substitute return for you,
It
does that
starts from
assess?
then, yes.
Then if you file your own return, does it start over?
Yes.
Oh, okay. But the question is that's a planning issue to do.
It starts over a little bit. There's a differential. So like if you file and it's like an increase. If you owe $10,000 today and you get assessed for more after because you refiled, that incremental
but if you were
difference
assessed for
is
less,
longer.
then it wouldn't.
Right.
Then it would go back to the other date.
It would be the original date.
Oh, okay. So there's very little, because if you file the return, in all likelihood, it's going to be for less than more, I would think.
On that scenario, yes.
Yeah.
Technically, how short of a period of time can the government go in and file a tax return if you haven't filed a tax
It's
return?
indeterminate.
Okay.
So they can do it right away. They
Right
could
after
take
the due date,
They
if
could
they
take
want.
6 years to do it.
Technically, they could do it
They could
April
do it.
16th.
All right, so the
Yeah.
solution on the unfiled returns is file the returns. It's not that big of a deal. Let's take a break and go to the next problem.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
Worth Ave Gross, our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call Fav Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call Fav Gross today, 888-235-HELP. Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
Worth Ave Gross, our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirshner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP.
You know, Dad always asked that we look after Mom when he passed away.
I know, but she insisted on moving down to the Villages, and now she has that new boyfriend, and I am worried. Maybe it's time to just call Samasco Law.
Take the stress out of your family's future. Reach out to Samasco Law and set a course through life's difficult times. Samasco Law, protecting what means most because that's what we do.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
Thav Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Thav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
All right, next problem. I have a business, I have unfiled payroll tax returns, federal and state.
That's a more serious problem because that liability balloons so quickly. But you have to file them.
First solution is file them.
File them.
But right away I'm going to have a payment problem.
You're going to have a payment problem. So once you file them and once you get assessed, we can get you into payment plans.
Well, who's getting assessed? Is it the individual getting assessed? Is the company getting assessed, or both?
Well, let me explain it to you this way, Brian. The problem is individual to the individual.
Ha, ha, ha.
That's one case where it's not true.
No, it's not. So it depends on if it's federal or state.
Okay.
So if it's federal payroll taxes, the withholding, FICA, Social Security, federal income tax, and things like that, the company owns 100% of the liability. But roughly 50 to 60% can be what's called trust fund penalty. So the owner or the responsible people, which could be the bookkeeper who's in charge of signing the checks, or anybody that makes decisions on what to pay and when to pay it, can be held personally liable for the trust fund portion of that payroll.
Even if you're a corporation.
So let me just translate that. If you're the secretary who's paying the bills and the owner's telling you what to do, and you write the checks and you sign them,
If the owner's
you are still potentially on the hook for the tax
Well, yes and no.
liability.
On your facts, if the
On your
owner's
fact-
telling you who to pay and not to pay, then you wouldn't be.
Then the
But you could,
secretary has the defense of she doesn't have the discretion.
But she
But-
has to defend it.
Right.
she has to defend it. But even change your facts a little bit more. The owner's kind of an absentee owner, and he leaves that to the secretary or the bookkeeper to decide. The threshold and what the law says is if you are in a position of deciding who to pay,
Right.
and you choose to pay others and not the trust fund portion, you have liability. So the bookkeeper, the CFO, the accountant, they can clearly have liability.
Yes.
Their defense is going to be, no, I didn't make the decisions. I was just signing the checks. I asked the
Right.
boss who
It was just
who
an
to pay.
administrative function.
But it's a sticky problem.
It is. It's difficult.
So you got but it's big dollars quickly.
It's very big
so
dollars
now
quickly.
you file the returns. First of all, here's your classic, the state of Michigan, who's very aggressive.
Right.
You don't file your Michigan withholding the state return, they'll send, it can be as quickly as 2-3 months, and sometimes it can be a long time. They'll send a tentative assessment, proposed assessment. You got 30 days to respond and object to it, otherwise it becomes final.
It becomes final. And for the state taxes, it's all can be personally held liable. The owners can be held personally liable for all of this.
And once
state
those
payroll
assess,
taxes.
once the tax is assessed on an estimated return, whether it's federal or state, they can then
They'll
hit your
file
bank
lien,
account.
they'll lien, and they can levy. And the state of Michigan will levy. And they'll send you things. People often don't get them, and then they go to their bank account, and there's no money.
Quick example. 3 days ago, I called Jeff. I said, client has just called me. He just got levied by the state. They're holding up his money. He has payroll tomorrow. How did you deal with the problem?
I got on the phone with the Treasury and the client, explained the problem, explained that it created a hardship and could potentially threaten the business, which is a hardship problem, and worked to get them information they needed about the payroll to establish that so that they would lift the levy. A bank levy, the bank will hold the money for 21 days before they give it.
So you can
to
get
the
it
tax
lifted during
authority.
that period.
Yeah, so you can,
Right.
Once the money goes away, it's a lot. You're never going to see it again.
Big point. I got the call. I'm familiar with these issues, but I don't deal with them on day to day. I didn't say to the client, well, just call and see if you can tell them you got a hardship. And I didn't say to the client, let me call the state and I'll tell them about the hardship, because I don't know. What I said was, Jeff will call you back in 10 minutes, assuming I can get a hold of him. And I immediately texted him and said, I've got to talk to you, emergency. And in the course of 20 minutes, you were on the phone with the client and then on the phone with the state.
Right.
You got to jump in that scenario, and you got to jump with someone who knows what they're doing, because you got payroll on Friday.
And you know those,
Now,
but I'll give
it
you
would
one.
be a lot better not to get into the situation.
Of
but
course.
SH happens, and when it happens, you got to do something about it.
I'll tell you one big problem here about these taxes that we're talking about. We're talking about payroll taxes, right? So payroll taxes are different than income taxes. You still owe the same entities, but the difference is that income taxes are dischargeable in bankruptcy. There's rules about that. I don't care who you are or what magic you can do. Payroll taxes are never dischargeable in bankruptcy.
Right.
So they will follow you until they can't follow you
You
anymore.
can deal with them in a Chapter 13, though, right?
You can control
Just like
them.
student debt.
You can control them, but
You can't eliminate.
you can't eliminate them. And if they're less than 3 years old, they have to be paid back in full.
All right, so payroll taxes,
during the bankruptcy
big
process.
problem. Okay, the solution is you got to file the returns, and then you got to deal with payment and get on a payment plan. One of the other key points there is always that you have to show the taxing authority that you've solved the problem by getting current on your current payroll taxes.
Compliance.
Right.
You have to be compliant.
You have to file on time and pay on time. If you're in any kind of relief program, installment payment plan, any of the things, you're basically on probation. And the probation is compliance. File on time and pay on time from that point forward until you're completely out of it.
So here's a key point on payroll taxes. Why are you in that problem? And how do you solve it? The problem is not that you didn't, the problem with regard to the government versus you is you didn't pay the taxes. The question is, why didn't you pay the taxes? And why didn't you pay the taxes is a cash flow issue that you have to solve, which we'll talk about after the break.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
Thav Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
Dad made us promise we would never put him in a nursing home.
I know, but he found that new caregiver on the internet, and I'm getting worried.
Don't worry, honey. I know just how to take care of you.
I'm sure you do.
Maybe it's time to call Samasco Law.
I've heard of them. All my friends on Facebook use them.
Take the stress out of your family's future. Reach out to Samasco Law and set a course through life's difficult times. Samasco Law, protecting what means most, because that's what we do.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Thav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Time for announcements. I want to announce Thav Gross has opened a new office downriver in the Horizon building on Eureka Road. So now we're in Flint, downriver, and also our home office in Bingham Farms. Remember, you can always come in for a free consultation. You can do it by Zoom conference, in the office, any way that works best for you. Just call 888-235-HELP or go to the website, thavgross.com, to sign up. Debt issues, tax issues, estate planning issues, business law issues, elder law issues with Pat or Kelsey, disability issues with Jeff Kirshner. Again, sign up at lawandreality.com or thavgross.com or just call 888-235-HELP. Also, if you go to the website, you'll see there's free reports. Resolving Tax Problems, The Real Solutions by Jeff Linden and myself. Bankruptcy, Is It Right for Me by Brian Small. How to Save Your Home from Foreclosure. Business Formations, Loans and Grants for Small Businesses in Detroit and Michigan. And The Retiree's Guide to Social Security by Pat Samasco. I want to thank our sponsors, Thav Gross, Samasco Law, Kirshner Law. Now back to the show.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirshner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call Thav Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call Thav Gross today, 888-235-HELP.
All right, so back to the payroll tax problems. Not solving the problem with the government. Why are you not paying your payroll taxes?
Right, the fundamental problem.
That's very rarely. I mean, we see it in the newspapers, and we've heard stories about it where the big company doesn't pay their payroll taxes, and the owners of the company are taking all that money and they're flying around in their own private jets, and they have yachts, and those are the ones that get prosecuted and sometimes go to jail for 18 months and have to give up their yacht, but they get to keep their plane. Who knows how that ends up, but it never ends up
but
fairly
that's not the normal. The normal is the small business that comes in to see us.
Too much expense.
That
right.
has been spent. The expenses went up. The income is going down.
So how do you solve that problem? Because unless you solve that problem, you're going to have the payroll tax problem.
Well, what about putting on automatic pay, though?
Well,
having it deducted every 2 weeks when payroll goes out.
Deduct from what?
But
you got to have the cash.
How are you going to get automatic income?
Right.
You either need to increase sales
or decrease
expense.
Right.
Now, the example that I like to use, it doesn't work for the small mom and pop pizza store that has 4 employees, because there you have a real serious problem.
Right.
You either have to cut owner payroll, sell the business, or close it down, or figure out how to get more business. But the mid-sized business that has 20, 30 employees, I've had that client come in and they have a big payroll tax problem, because when they stop paying the payroll taxes, the bill is big.
Right.
I sit there and say to them, this is a cigar box. What goes into the cigar box is your income. What comes out is your expense. At the end of the month, there has to be some money left in the box. If you can't make that happen, you cannot stay in business. So I say to them, where can you cut? And they're saying, well, I don't know. And then we start talking about employees. You got 25 employees. Who can you get rid of? Oh, well, I have to have my human resource person. I have to have this person. I said to him, here's how it works. And I have him give me the list. And I say, take the list. This is your homework. The list has their names and has the amounts. We've identified how much they're short every month.
Right.
$40,000 a month they're short. Let's make it $20,000. I said to him, you have to come back tomorrow and tell me who you're going to cut, and the total of the cuts has to equal $20,000 a month. And if you can't cut them, close the business. It's down to that.
And that's where you get to the strategy of, okay, you could eliminate employees, or you can cut payroll, and you could take a slice off of everybody.
Yes.
And everybody feels the pain.
And both.
Or both.
You have to eliminate anyone who's not necessary.
And the first place
and you then have to cut everybody proportionately to get to where you want to be.
I mean, the reality is the first place most owners will do is they'll start to cut their payroll. But that's usually not enough.
It's never going to be enough.
And then so they take a cut.
And let me say something. They should cut their payroll.
And then there's somebody who's on the chopping block, or 2 people, or 5 people.
My experience is very simple. If you look at big business, they tell you the reality. We hear these, all of a sudden you'll get these announcements. Amazon lays off 30,000 people. Ford lays off all these people. GM closes this plant, that plant. When all those things happen, there's one reality that always seems to still exist. The next day, those companies are still in business. They were able to cut expense because they were fat. They didn't think that they were fat, but they became fat, and it came time to cut. That is also true in the mid-sized business. It's much harder because the owner knows the employees. You don't get the luxury of cutting by just going with numbers. Okay, Department A, cut 15 people. And then you leave it to somebody else to decide who the 15 people whose lives are going to be ruined the following day. It's on you when you're a small business and you have to lay somebody off. You know you're ruining their life, or at least on a temporary basis. But that's reality. You've got to do it. If you don't do it, what's going to happen?
Everyone's out. The whole business.
The business is going to go down anyway, but you're going to have the trust fund liability that's not dischargeable in bankruptcy, and it's going to be on you. It's not going to be on them. You've got to make the difficult decisions.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. You can borrow from your aunt, your mother, your cousin. You should never borrow from your uncle.
It's absolutely true. That's true. It's individual to the individual. And there was this line you came up with the other week that had something to do with death that I thought was probably the most profound, best line you ever had. And I said to you, would you repeat that? And you said, I can't remember what it was.
That's right.
And to this day, I still have not remembered it. On that note, have a great week. We'll be back next week with Law and Reality.